NEPG round 3, the Cajun Classic in Forest Hills, Louisiana. Me and this open A guy take off first. I'm going to try and pace him for the rest of this entire race because I want to, keep that pace up. I was trying to get footage from the first 3 tests, and then that's my footage from test 1. That's it. It's over. We're going to go ahead and move on to test 2 because now I actually get good footage. Same thing, open A guy, and then I drop into first and second. And I think Josh dropped in behind me, open B rider, and a 55 B rider all on our line. The trail conditions were incredible. It was in the mid-80s all day long. It was this kind of moist loam. It made for really good traction. There were no real big mud spots. The low brush thing kind of messed with my head at first, but that's just what the terrain was around here. It was just low brush. And it doesn't have the same kind of like stumps and weird logs like what Sumter or somewhere around where I live would have. So it was a little less sketchy for me to be running through that, faster kind of low cut stuff that I'm not usually the best at. This was a good indication of what the trail was going to be like. It had that open stuff, and then you drop into something like this, which is tight, but it's flowy tight, so you'd be banging your bars off of trees, but it wasn't anything that you couldn't really keep any speed into. Whereas opposed to like Florida, where there was no real flow, or at least I couldn't find the flow for that kind of terrain, this place I've had a really good showing and felt really good the whole time. This race is held on an old army base called Camp Claiborne. It's 40,000 acres with a grid road that runs all the way through it. And on this race, you would come out onto the grid road a couple times, and it was just pieces of concrete way out in the woods that were left, and there were buildings and pieces of concrete and stuff that you had to kind of negotiate in this trail. And part of it was a long straightaway. We ran across a fence that next to it says hazardous materials holding, and you think, oh, what's left in there, But overall, it's just a really cool race, really cool organization. Whoever cut the trail did an incredible job. And then the facility was just cool because you could just, ride a mountain bike around. Or there were guys on street bikes kind of just cruising around. And it's also a OHV facility, so the trails weren't closed. And as far as I understood it, you could actually go ride the trails that weren't the race trail. The only thing I didn't like about it was how far it took for us to drive, because I think it was a 16-hour drive there and then like a 14-hour drive back. It's a hard weekend, and to do it in 4 days, including a whole 60-mile, 4-hour race. But I'll do it again. This race was incredible. I had a really good showing, like I said. I think I ended up 4th out of 15 in 30B, which is my best race yet. I'm hoping that's where I can be. I feel like I'm going to end up top 5. I'd be really happy with a top 5 in 30B. That's where I feel like I am currently with my speed and technique and everything. I'm noticing that I'm going to probably just have to bite the bullet and eventually I have a gym membership, I just never go. I need to increase my ability to go ride my mountain bike, and I need to go out and actually go to the gym and start working on stuff like my core strength and my shoulder strength, because that's where I start dropping off at the end of these races. So get into test 5, and my arms are killing me, and it's just because of how much work this is. I need to condition my shoulders for that much effort. That's what you realize when you do this kind of stuff. Like my hydration levels were good, the stuff I ate was good. I didn't feel super hungry all day long, and I wasn't lacking for energy. I just noticed that my muscle mass or muscle tone is not there for the duration on a long race like this. We were row 15, made for some lap traffic that we ended up into. Everybody at this race tended to just slide out of the way. There was no real problems with people jamming you up or feeling like you were pressuring them, and they would make a big mistake and crash in front of you, which eventually slows you down. I'm starting to get more focused on my time. So if I go run a race and I'm making a mistake in a place, or slowing down through corners, so if I can speed up through the corners, I make up a couple seconds per test. A couple seconds per test equals 15 seconds overall, which I've lost a race by less than 15 seconds before. Lost a position, or ended up in second. And so if I can make up that kind of time and be conscious of that, then I can really whittle away the amount of time the leader in our division has on me, which I've already cut that down to from like a 10-minute gap to, I think this race he was only like a minute and change ahead of me, which made for a big confidence boost on my side because it's showing that what I'm doing is actually producing results. I feel a lot more comfortable in the 350 than I have in a long time. Finally got my suspension set up for me. I got it dialed in by Mark Hilton over at MVR. He did a killer job. It's the first time I've ever had my suspension set up proper for me. It's worth the investment if you can do it. One of the coolest features about this entire course was these sand washes. So it was like this long channel of just sugar sand. And the beginning of it was a little wet, but then as you pushed into it a little further, it got drier and drier, and it turned into just, you know, white sugar sand that was bottomless, it seemed like. And the first one was more narrow and only like a half-mile long, and there was really only one or two places you could go. There was like one good rut, you know. And it was hard for me to go from riding in that like clay, black loam stuff to sugar sand because of how you have to ride sand. You really have to, you know, weight the rear end, and you don't brake hard without you brake with your rear, but you can't really get on your front brake as hard. And it's just it took me a second to get into the flow of riding sand after riding that clay stuff like we were riding at the beginning of this race. And then you'd have somebody faster come up on you and trying to get out of the way enough so a faster guy can pass you without holding them up or making yourself crash is pretty difficult to do. I try to do it here and try to, you know, make it as easy as possible for both of us because I really don't want to get tangled up with somebody in this stuff because that's going to be a weird, probably pretty brutal crash if you get kind of tangled up in this stuff and get tossed because sand has a tendency to throw you. I really like those elements of the race though. There was one in test 2 here and then another one in test 5. The test 5 wash was longer, wider, and faster. It made for a really interesting set of obstacles. There's no real elevation change. This whole area is kind of flat. And I'm ready for some rocks. I'm used to riding elevation and rocks and stuff. I think I'm ready for that. In Georgia, we'll get a little bit of that. And then I think over in Ohio and stuff, we'll get a little more rocky terrain, which would kind of interesting to see how everybody negotiates rocks and roots for 60 miles of trail. And I'm not complaining in any way that this trail was, you know, too easy or anything. The riding group that set up this trail did an amazing job, like I said before, and I had a lot of fun the whole race. I haven't felt this good on my bike in a long time, and this was probably my best feeling, flowing, you know, grooving with the bike kind of day I've had in a long time. So that guy I just passed was the open A guy that I started off with in the beginning of the race. I talked to him at the end. I was like, "Hey man, I didn't expect to see you again. What happened?" And he said he pitched it and crashed, which is easy to do. He kind of flamed out by the end of the day. Ended up having a bad showing. I don't know what happened there. I just kind of pushed wide and hit that grass, and it toppled me over. It actually paid off because when I had taken off from the pits, my handlebars were crooked, just a tiny bit, and then that little dip straightened them back out. So it was all for the better. That little crash shows a good reason why I like having the Recluse so much. So I drop the bike, and it doesn't flame out. It just lays there and kind of chugs along, and I can grab the clutch, pick it up, and take off again without losing very much time. And talking to like Keith and Jones and all these guys, they say that, you know, they had a couple flame outs. Like even Keith said a couple times that he had one flame out that lasted a few seconds, you know, like a good 20 seconds-ish. And that can be a killer, you know, if you're really running tight with the guys early in your rows, or like you're a front runner and you're on even open A or even my row, like 20 seconds would have put me back another position almost. And then so for the higher classes, it's better, you know, you don't want that to happen. So the Recluse really saved me there. I don't really care about it for the technical riding. I prefer a manual clutch, but having it during those little bobbles you have really does help. We're coming up to the end of test 2, and overall I had a really good time. Glad I went. Me and Josh, you know, drove all that way just so we could ride a race, then drive all that way back and be completely spent the whole next day. I'll do it again next year if I can. This was, like I said, one of my favorite courses we've had so far. I'm hoping the rest of them are kind of like this. I'm not expecting perfect conditions. I know at least one of them is going to be rain and mud and all that crap, but if they could be like this, I'd be really, really happy with this entire series. I'm thankful for NEPG for putting on such good races and the Arcadian Dirt Riders for putting together such a good trail. We'll see you guys in round 4 at Cherokee and Georgia. That's it. Peace.